Welcome guys, Raj Sangha of Car Security. Welcome to another episode of Raj's Garage. It's been a while since I filmed a car. I've been restoring cars, modifying cars, buying cars, but I thought it's about time we get back to my cars that I've already got and what I've done to them and why do I have them. Now, in the background, you're going to see these two insane 90s hot hatches, uber cool. If you've not seen the previous episodes about these two cars, there'll be links at the end of this episode. Make sure you go and watch them. But today, we're going to be talking about the first car that started my Porsche addiction, and that is my 964 Carrera 2. Okay, I started looking for 964s probably 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. I saw an amazing ruby stone red 964 C2, belongs to a good friend of mine, Richard Payne. Fell in love with that car, fell in love with the look and the stance, started looking. Now, I didn't realize how difficult it would be to find the right 964. Prices were slowly starting to creep up. A lot of C4s out there, didn't want that, didn't want a tip, didn't want a cabriolet, had to be a C2 manual. This car appeared at an auction site in 2014. Watching the site, I actually forgot to go to the auction. And the day after the auction, I thought, you know what, let me just log on, see what happened to that car. Guess what? It didn't sell. On the phone to him, rang him, have you still got that car? Why didn't it sell? And they said, actually, the car's still here. The owner's picking it up tomorrow. So if you want, if you come in today, this is the price. And they threw out a number and I thought, you know what? That's cheap. So myself and Palm got in a car, drove to this auction site. I'm not going to say where it was. Saw the car, rang Richard. Said, Richard, look, you're going to have to go via FaceTime and so on, work out if there's any issues with this car. They wouldn't let us drive it because it's an auction, so they allowed us to start it and have a look around the car, look through the paperwork, look through the history file. The car had already had an engine rebuild many years ago. It was in marine blue. We'll throw up some pictures, had some nice interior, some nice touches, loads of history, a few owners, but that didn't faze me. The price was just, I couldn't refuse it. Bought the car, drove back 3 or 4 days later, driving it around, engine went. Yes, the engine went. So smoking, tappity, that was it. Engine was done. So had I bought a dog? Probably. And looking around the car after having on a ramp, there was numerous issues on the car that we found. There was rust on virtually every panel. The actual spoiler skirts here, they were held on with screws from the outside and they were visible. It hadn't been looked after, but to be fair, the price I'd bought the car for, I couldn't complain. Okay guys, check this engine bay out. Now, the list of upgrades and modifications and all the engine work that was done is extensive. There's no way I'm going to be able to remember everything. So I've got a list. So I'm going to read out, not everything because it's like 3 pages of parts and so on, but I'm going to read out sort of the most important parts that were changed during the engine rebuild process. So I've got a piston ring set, all new head studs, 24 of them, the main bearing, the big end bearings, that's 12 of those, engine gasket set, there's various seals and O-rings and Jubilee clips and oil pipes and so on, the power steering pipe, new engine mounts, upgraded fuel pump installed, lower cam covers, there's loads of tinware. The cylinder head was also refurbished, new valve guides, stem seals, and I've also put in an RS flywheel clutch, lightweight, and an new engine temp sensor, which was upgraded to the 993 type, which is a little bit more reliable. Finally, we added a cup pipe and these carbon pieces just to finish off the details in the engine bay. Now I've got to say, it does look super cool and it goes like stink. But we'll do that, we'll go out for a drive shortly. But I've got to say, work of art. Thank you very much, Milestone 71. Okay, so engine rebuilt, 1,000 miles, gave it back to milestone 71, oil refresh, job done, fantastic, running amazingly. Now I had to tackle the exterior, and that bodywork was tired. Remember I told you it's marine blue, there was a picture that we threw up earlier on. You can't see in that picture, but every panel was beat up. There was rust, paint was blistering, lacquer was peeling, screws were holding up side skirts. The front bumper and the rear bumper, the plastics had all warped. There was rust around the windscreen, the rear screen. You get it. A car that was 20 odd years old, but it had been neglected. So the option was stick to that same color or go totally different. Obviously, I went totally different. With regards to the paint itself, as you can see from the pictures, the car was stripped back to bare metal because obviously color change, plus there was 25 odd years worth of paint and damage to the car. So bare metal, doors off, boot lid, rear tailgate off, engine out because I was going color change, glass out. So you can see the extensive repair work that was done to get the car to the fantastic level that you see it sitting in now. Finally, once the car was painted, I had the more or less the whole car PPF'd, which is paint protection film. That was done by Reap. I decided to go for slate grey. Why slate grey? Well, it's correct for the 964. There were 964s that were painted in slate grey in 89 and 91 through to 93. But actually in 1990, this is a 1990 car, slate grey wasn't an option. So I chose slate grey. I love the colour. But I just didn't want an off-the-shelf slate grey. I wanted something slightly different. So Greg said, you know, we'll put some gold fleck in that slate grey. So when it's under the lights, knowing that I was going to use this car as a show car, that colour would pop, and it most definitely does. So I'm going to go through the list of all the parts that were replaced. And this is a lot, and there's going to be a lot of you think, am I mad? Possibly, but you know what happens? You start a project, you get into it, you find this is wrong, that's wrong, and before you know it, you think, oh, sod it, just do it, do it, do it. And that's what happened with this car. It sort of ran away. Now, I knew I needed a front windscreen because it was pretty shot. So I ordered a new screen, and the side glass was a little bit tired, there were scratches. So in the end, all new glass, front screen, all the side windows, the door mirrors. I went for an RS rear screen, which has the wiper delete, slightly lighter, doesn't have the heater elements in the back of the screen. So that's all new glass throughout the car. Let's talk about the car from the front and work to the back. Externally, what have I replaced and what's been done? New front bumper, new RS ducts, all the lights, so these and the indicator lights. These little O-rings that sit around the lights, they were replaced as well. The Porsche badge, that's brand new. All these perishables, these rubbers, they're all brand new as well. Wipers, wiper blades, fresh. Washer jets, and on the front I had the washer jets removed. So 964s have a washer jet on either side. I've had those removed as well. Again, all these rubbers, so front and back, all the side rubbers here and here, they've all been replaced. Sunroof rubber, or the seal should I say, that's been replaced. New side skirts, new shark fin, both sides. Again, all the seals as well. Coming along to the back, brand new rear bumper. The rear tail light, that's the complete section in 3 parts, so left, right, and the central part. New tailgate, because the previous one was pretty shot. New spoiler, including the motor for the spoiler and also the spoiler curtain. So when the spoiler comes up, there's actually a curtain that hides all the mechanism and the running gear underneath. That, also the fuel cap, all the rubbers. Now, every single plastic part, I had to get all the new brackets, the clips, the screws, the gaskets, also full set of arch liners with the fittings and the screws, obviously. Where else are we? Oh, going inside the car. So obviously gone to town on the outside, replaced so many parts. You know, bar the actual shell, virtually everything on the outside was replaced. Door handles were fresh as well. But when you open the doors, all the check straps, the locking mechanism, all the bolts, all the nuts, all these sort of perishables, these kick panels, they've all been replaced. This seal here, that's all been replaced on both sides. So you can see why I went to town and why that list from Porsche was 7 or 8 pages long. Very, very expensive. That was 6 years ago. Now, I know Porsche prices have gone up, so I'm glad I did it 6 years ago, because now probably cost me best part of 30–40% more. So that's the external done. We've covered the engine. Let's talk about the inside of the car now. Interior space, the cabin, possibly the most important part of this car, because that's where you're going to spend most of your time, in the cabin, driving the car. Came with lovely bluey grey leather interior, factory fresh, actually was in very good condition, but not what I wanted. That came out. These seats, these Recaro A8s, these were actually in my Audi RS2 at the time, but they were in that sort of blue finish that's quite common on those Nogaro blue RS2s. We'll throw a picture up. Now, obviously I didn't want blue interior, wouldn't go. So Greg recommended a fantastic trimmer called VBE Restorations based in Rugby, and they were given the job of re-trimming the whole interior. So the Recaro A8s were given to them. They were pulled back, lovely carbon backs. The rear seats, I sourced another set of rear seats. So all of this interior is fresh interior. The interior that came with the car was ripped out and parked, because at the end of the day, you never know, maybe one day I want to sell the car and I'd want to keep these seats. So I've still got that interior. So Recaro A8, retrimmed in leather, carbon backs, new rear seats, new door cards, all new carpet, which they actually made in-house for me. All the roof lining is fresh, the sun visors, they've trimmed the dash as well with this lovely red stitching, which you've got obviously on these Recaro A8s. The A8s were actually in a bad way, so most of you who know about A8s, the bolsters tend to wear away and disappear after years, so they had to rebuild the bolsters. So fresh leather, fresh carpet, fresh mats, roof lining, dash, and door cards. Thank you very much, VBE Restorations. They did an awesome job. Okay, I couldn't stop there, because our fresh interior, and you've still got the old steering wheel and so on. So the original Porsche steering wheel was pulled out. Thank you very much, Momo, for this Prototipo C in carbon. Looks absolutely insane, but I needed a few of the carbon touches. So the center console was reskinned in carbon, new leather handbrake, and obviously we've got the gator there around the gear stick as well. Around the dials, this sort of silver overlay actually came with the car. Now, I have contemplated of maybe changing that, maybe carbon fiber, reskinning them. Might be too much. I'm a little bit unsure. What do you think? Should I leave as is, or should I do a sort of carbon overlay on these little rings here as well? I think I'll probably change the rev counter to red to match the stitching on the dash and on the seats as well. In the middle, you've got my airlift controller. Yes, my 964 C2 is on airlift 3H suspension. We'll show you that build that's in the front of the car. And the audio. So I had a blank canvas. Now, these cars typically have 5 1/4 inch components in the front. I've actually managed to get 6.5s in, because I've got fresh door cards. So I've got 6.5 inch Rockford Punch component kit, mid-range and tweeter. And on the back shelf, these normally come with 4x6s with their own Porsche grills. I've gone 5 1/4 on the back shelf, because I sourced a brand new back shelf. We've also got an active sub hidden in the passenger footwell here. We'll show you that. That's a Rockford Fosgate 8-inch active woofer, and there's an amp in the front with the airlift suspension build, which powers the front and the rear speakers. As a source unit to control the audio, I'm using the latest Kenwood KDC BT740 DAB single-din stereo. The illumination I've matched to the interior lights. This gives you digital radio, FM radio, USB as well, and Bluetooth streaming. You've got the USB socket right on the front here, which is ideal for charging your phone, Android or iPhone, and you've got an aux input directly below that as well. So that's enough of the interior. Let me show you the front, and then we could talk about the suspension and the wheels. Okay guys, come check this out. Now, those of you that are familiar with the front hood, bonnet area, whatever you want to call it, of the 964 will know that from factory you have some pretty poor carpet which just sort of clips in place. This is all made out of MDF. This was custom made in-house by the cardio security team. So all the panels were fabbed in-house. It's trimmed in Alcantara. You've got that Rockford Fosgate 5-channel amplifier, the airlift manifold, and the 3 air tanks with all the hard lines. Lovely sort of LED lighting just to give you that cool glow. Now I've got to say, this is one of the best 964 builds that I've seen. If you think there's a better build out there, show me, prove it, because I don't think there is. Rotiform, 18-inch STRs. I've got to say, the staggered fitment, the car looks fantastic. Slammed on the floor, airlift performance. Ultimately, that is what we sell, so that's why we've gone with airlift. The car drives and handles well. You'll see that in a few minutes. Originally, I had 18-inch Fuchs on this car. And then I went for these STRs, which sort of are a nod to the old, I think, Porsche 928 wheel. Which ones do you think actually suit the car? We'll throw a picture up of the 18-inch Fuchs. Which ones do you actually think the car looks better with, the Fuchs or the STRs? One final detail that I had done, which was done by Northway Porsche, was just to paint the calipers. They were again tired, painted them red, obviously to match the interior stitching and so on. So Northway Porsche actually look after this car. They do all the servicing and so on. Great bunch of guys. Thanks. I've covered the exterior, I've covered the engine, I've covered the interior, the suspension and the wheels. You're probably asking, how much did this all cost? Well, in today's market, a 964 Carrera 2 manual, right-hand drive, they're going for anywhere between 55 and 70,000 pounds. Now, I'm not going to tell you what I paid for this car, but I will tell you, all said and done, the paint, all the Porsche parts, the interior retrim, I'm less than that. So for less than what you can buy a 964 C2, I have this. This is probably a keeper for me. It's the first Porsche that I bought. The amount of money that I've thrown at it, the hard work that's gone into it, sourcing all the parts, doing all the legwork, all the networking that was done around that time, I probably wouldn't sell this car. What's it worth today? I don't know. And I don't really care because it's not for sale. But enough of money. Let's get in. Let's go for a drive. I'll talk to you about the suspension setup. And this is going to be cool. Let's go. We are in my 964. Now, the first thing you may realize watching me drive the car is how small the cabin is. And when I mean small, it is this small. Watch. I am now touching the other side door card and I wasn't even stretching. So that gives you an idea. If you've not been in a 964, it gives you an idea how tight the cabin is. Everything is at arm's reach. You know, we're talking all your rear heater control, your fog lights here, the stereo, your heating and climate control. There is no AC in this particular car. On the dials, we've got fuel, we've got oil level, which always shows as 0 when you're driving, so that only rises. The oil level gives a clear indication when you're still. And then we've got oil temperature, oil pressure, and as with all 911s, the rev counter sits in the middle of the steering wheel, so it gives you an idea of where your revs are. So very small, tight cabin inside. Lovely seating position from here. Great bolster support from my Recaro A8s. Now, one thing when you do get into a classic 911, a right-hand drive classic 911, is that your pedals are offset. So you may not be able to see it on the camera, but I'm sitting slightly skew width. So my feet are slightly to the left of the rest of my body. Now, from what I understand, the reason why that is on right-hand cars only is because the oil cooler sits in the front wing. So there's less space inside the cabin because of the location of the oil cooler. You know, you've got your wheel arch liners and so on there. On left-hand drive cars, you don't have that problem because the oil cooler still sits on the right-hand side of the car. So on the left-hand side, you've got the full width of the cabin area where your pedals are. So you don't sit as skew-whiff as I am. It's something you get used to. Initially, when you get in a classic 911 and you start driving, you think, why does it look like I'm driving slightly to the side? You're not. Again, with classic 911, the interior ergonomics are a little bit strange. So, okay, you've got your window switches here, rocker switches here. You've got your mirror adjustment here. To adjust from left to right mirror, you've got a switch here, which is a little bit weird. And then to do the sunroof, the switch is here. So possibly an afterthought by Porsche to put the switch there. To adjust the time on the clock, there's a little rocker switch underneath the clock here. So it looks like these are all sort of afterthoughts that Porsche engineers thought, you know what, where should we put the sunroof window switch? Let's not stick it there. Let's stick it where it just looks a bit silly and stupid. But you get used to that. Down here, just behind the gear stick, you've got this, which is a toggle switch for manual override on the rear spoiler. The rear spoiler self-rises at about 50 miles an hour, but you've got manual override there. You've got a hazard warning light, and you've got central locking here as well. And if there's ever some sort of warning that the car needs to give you, could be, you know, fuel, low fuel, could be oil pressure, warning triangle comes up on the dash and this lights up, and then you just press that and that resets it. So in terms of interior, very basic and very simple, as you'd expect with a car that's best part of 30 odd years old. Now, what's it like to drive? Well, this car's on airlift 3/8 suspension, as I've already mentioned earlier. What's it like to drive? Well, it does not drive like a 1960s Impala. It drives like a 21st century sports car, and it goes. And the suspension, fantastic. And it does go. So it goes well, it pulls nicely, and that lovely air-cooled engine note and exhaust note, which you only get on the classic 911s. Okay, in terms of power, 250 brake from a normally aspirated 3.6 engine is quick. Not quick by modern standards, but it's quick. And the fact that it's such a small and nimble, agile car, it makes you feel that you're going a lot quicker than you are. Still 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds, so that's not too bad. I actually don't know how much power this car is actually delivering. It could be a little bit more, because obviously I've had the engine rebuilt, the exhaust has been changed, different air filter, so it could be a little bit more. At some point it'd be good to get it on a rolling road and see actually what this car is pushing out, because I feel it's maybe a little bit more than 250 brake. So going back to the suspension, I know there's a lot of purists out there that have messaged me in the past. I said, look, why have you put that 964 on air? Why didn't you put it on KWs or Bilsteins? Well, one of the main reasons is that at Car Security Tuning Store, we are the UK distributors for airlift, and I need to promote my own products. And why not promote it on a car that I've restored and rebuilt from the ground up, to show you that this suspension is fantastic, as you can see. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Obviously, as always, like, subscribe to the channel. That's very, very important. Any comments, any questions you have, either about the air ride, about the audio, about the car, who are used, parts, whatever it may be, just throw them down below and we'll answer them. Now, this is the first Porsche that I purchased, as I said earlier. There are a few other Porsches that I've got, and we will slowly start bringing them to Raj's Garage in subsequent episodes. So obviously, again, very, very important that you subscribe to get an idea of those cars, what I've done to those cars, and what my plans are for those cars. Now guys, thanks for watching. Over and out.